Life has been pretty good so far. I've been married to a beautiful and attractive woman for 5 years, and we have 2 wonderful sons, aged 4 and 3. I met my wife through mutual friends about 6 years ago. They say opposites attract, and in our case, that couldn't be more true. In high school, she was the typical all-American girl, while I was the classic bad boy, the kind of guy who always got his way. She went to college, and I got a job working in a factory. She was the type who dressed up for every occasion, while I was perfectly content in jeans and a t-shirt. I think you get the picture. We were opposites. However, we did have something in common, which I'll get to later. We first met at a New Year's Eve party. She was there with her date, some rich guy who clearly relied on his money to win women over. But she didn't seem like the kind of woman you could buy. Most of the people at this party were probably doing well financially, everyone except me, of course. I was just a regular factory worker, but I was happy with my life. I worked 8-hour shifts, had great benefits, and lived without much stress. You're probably wondering how I even ended up at this party. It all started one day when I was driving home from work and saw a broken-down car on the federal highway. This is the kind of place where you really don't want to have car trouble, especially during rush hour. It was a nice, expensive car. When I pulled up next to it, I recognized one of our office managers sitting in the driver's seat. His wife was next to him, looking visibly upset. I pulled over, got out, and approached the car. "Mr. Bailey, I'm John Davis from the alterations department. Is there anything I can do to help?" "I recognized you," I said. "John, thanks for stopping. The stupid car just gave out on us." "We were lucky to make it to the side of the road," he replied. Then he gestured toward his wife and added, "Oh, sorry. I should introduce you. This is my wife, Emma." "Hello, Mrs. Bailey. Nice to meet you. I just wish it were under better circumstances," I said. "John, if you could take a quick look under the hood, I'd appreciate it. I called the auto service, but they said it would take about 2 hours for them to get here," Dan said. "Anything you can do would be a big help." "Of course, let me see what I can do," I replied. He popped the hood, and I took a closer look. "Mr. Bailey, did you recently replace the battery?" I asked. "You can call me Dan," he said. "And yes, we actually replaced the battery 2 days ago." "Well, your mechanic left a wrench on the battery, and it looks like it jiggled loose and hit the connectors, causing the car to short out. Let me remove it and see if that solves the problem." "That explains it," Dan replied. "I'll need a pair of gloves. That wrench is fried." I went back to my truck, grabbed some gloves, and carefully removed the now-charred wrench from the battery. Using my tools, I cleaned the connectors as best I could. "Okay, Dan, try starting the car now," I said. The engine roared to life. I closed the hood, wrapped the burnt wrench in a rag, and handed it to him. "You should take this to a shop and have them check the electrical system to make sure nothing else is damaged. They'll probably need to replace the connectors too." I cleaned them up as much as I could, but it's better to be safe. "How much do I owe you?" Dan asked. "You don't owe me anything," I replied. "Maybe one day I'll need help. It was nice meeting you, Emma. Maybe we'll run into each other again someday." "It was nice meeting you too, John," Emma said. They drove off, and I got back into my truck and headed home. There's something incredibly satisfying about helping people when they're in trouble. A couple of days later, while I was working, Dan approached me to thank me again. He told me that when he took his car to the dealership, they had to replace most of the wiring. The mechanic said he was lucky the car hadn't caught fire. "I'm just glad I could help," I said. "Emma wanted me to invite you to our New Year's party as a thank you. If you don't have plans, you should come. You can bring a date if you want, but if not, there will be plenty of eligible ladies there," he said, handing me an invitation. "Thank you, Dan. I'll probably come alone." Please thank Emma for inviting me. And just to clarify, do I need to wear a suit and tie? Dress however you like, John. It's a party. The idea is to have fun, Dan replied. When the party rolled around, I wore slacks, a blue button-down shirt, and a sports jacket. That's about as formal as I get. Dan and Emma greeted me warmly at the door and introduced me to several other guests, including Kara and her date, Rob. Kara was stunning, a truly beautiful woman. Kara was all dressed up, and when she smiled at me, she said, "Hi, John. Nice to meet you." Rob, on the other hand, was exactly what I had imagined, an arrogant man who was clearly only interested in climbing the corporate ladder. Kara and Rob worked in the same office. Emma, though technically a partner in the firm, kept a low profile, so most people assumed she was just a middle manager. Rob was busy sucking up to the boss, so I walked up to Kara and asked her to dance. From the very beginning, we hit it off. We danced together, and she opened up a little about her life. She told me she worked in the same office as Rob and didn't really like him, but had agreed to be his date for this party. She knew most of the people from her office, but wasn't familiar with Dan's group of friends. I shared some details about myself, and honestly, I thought it might turn her off. I wasn't someone with a lot of money, but surprisingly, that didn't seem to bother her. She struck me as someone independent and confident in her own way. We danced 4 songs in a row before she remembered she was technically there with Rob. She left to find him, and I danced with a few other women. But it wasn't the same. Once these women realized I wasn't wealthy, most left after the first dance. It became clear to me that they weren't interested in love. They were hunting for husbands, and for them, money was the ultimate prize. At midnight, as everyone cheered "Happy New Year" and kissed each other, I started looking for Kara. When I found her, I asked if she'd give me a New Year's kiss. She smiled and kissed me. I pulled her closer for a second kiss, this one slow and sensual. At first, she seemed surprised, but after a moment, she relaxed and kissed me back. We kissed 3 or 4 times before she pulled away. "What about your date?" I asked her. She laughed softly and replied, "I think he's probably off with one of the secretaries. Are you ready to leave? I can take you home," I offered. Kara hesitated for a moment, then said, "I don't know why I left with you. Rob is going to be furious on Monday. Tell him you saw him kissing the secretary and decided to leave. Honestly, that's probably what he's doing anyway. But come with me, if for no other reason, then just for me. I want to show you off. You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met." She smiled at my honesty but said, "I'm not your girl. You will be if you come to this party with me." "Come on, Kara, live a little," I replied. She laughed and agreed. I drove us to a local party where I knew some of my friends would be. When we arrived, everyone I knew greeted us and couldn't stop talking about how stunning Kara was. They bombarded me with questions about her, but I barely knew anything about her myself. Still, the party was a lot of fun. Most people accepted her right away, though a few women seemed a bit envious of her. We stayed at the party for a couple of hours, enjoying ourselves, before I decided to take her home. She told me she still lived with her parents, but they were out of town for the weekend. When we got to her house, she turned to me and asked, "Do you want to come in, John?" "Only if I can make love to you," I replied, half joking. She looked at me seriously and said, "We just met today. What would you think of me if I said yes?" I smiled and said, "Kara, I want to make love to you, to possess your body. I want to kiss every inch of you. As for what I'd think of you later, I think even more of you than I already do. In fact, I might already be falling in love with you." She seemed torn, trying to decide whether this was right or wrong. But I didn't wait for an answer. I gently took her hand and led her to the door. She handed me the key, and we entered the foyer together. She removed her coat, and we headed to her bedroom. Neither of us said a word. When we got there, I kissed her softly and tenderly. "John, I've never done this on a first date before. I need you to know that," she whispered. I slowly unzipped her dress and let it fall to the floor. Beneath it, she wore only a lacy bra and panties. She also had on tights, which I've never liked. I gently put my hands on them and began to slide them down her legs. She sat on the edge of the bed as I finished removing them. "Kara, why do women wear tights? Most guys hate them," I said, teasing her. She smiled and replied, "For 2 reasons, John. First, to make my legs look smoother. And second, to keep guys from getting into my pants." I laughed as I removed the tights and gently pushed her back onto the bed. What followed was a night of passion. We made love for hours, although, of course, we had to rest between sessions. After that night, we started dating seriously, and eventually we got married. Her parents weren't thrilled about the wedding. They clearly had doubts about me. But Kara stood her ground and told them that she loved me, no matter what. We told Kara's parents that if they didn't agree to let us have a wedding, we would elope. Reluctantly, they gave in and ended up throwing us a grand wedding. Honestly, I felt out of place at such an extravagant event. The only people I really knew there were my mom, dad, Dan, Emma, and, of course, Rob, since Kara had invited her entire office. I had invited a few friends from work, but none of them came. They sent cards and gifts but admitted they'd feel out of place at such a fancy wedding. As a wedding gift, her parents gave us $5,000 as a down payment for a house. With it, we bought a modest home, well, modest for her taste, but it was still a stretch for my finances. I worked overtime to make the payments. Kara never complained about our financial situation, and I never knew if her parents occasionally helped her out or not. She knew how much it mattered to me to be the head of the household, and I wanted to rely on her parents as little as possible. Shortly after we got married, Kara became pregnant. It wasn't something we had planned. We were just making love day and night for weeks after our wedding. When our son Jimmy was born, Kara took a couple of months off from work to be with him. After that, she returned part-time because we needed the extra income. Just over a year later, we welcomed our second son, Jerry. We kept my initials in the family: Jimmy, Jerry, and me, John. I was hoping we'd wait a few years before having another child, but Kara decided to go on birth control after Jerry's birth. She took another 2 months off to care for him before going back to work part-time. Not long after, we got bad news. My plant was shutting down and merging with another plant 2 states away. I was shocked. It was the only job I'd ever had since high school, and now I was about to lose it. I came home that evening to talk to Kara about the options they'd given us. We could either move to Illinois, we were in Ohio, or take a severance package, which was based on our time worked. We had just 60 days to decide. Kara immediately said she didn't want to leave the state. Both our families lived here, and she wanted our kids to grow up knowing their grandparents. Unfortunately, there weren't many job opportunities in our city at the time. That's when Kara came up with an idea. I could become a stay-at-home dad while she worked full-time. At first, I wasn't sure. Her job paid $80,000 a year, which was something I had no idea about. We'd never really discussed her salary. I asked her why she'd never told me before, and she explained that many men feel insecure when their wives earn more than they do. But then she reassured me, "John, you're not inferior to anyone. I love you with all my heart, and we'll get through this bump in the road together." We didn't have many choices, so I became a stay-at-home dad. It's been almost a year since I took on this role, and honestly, it's been pretty rewarding, diapers aside. I take our boys to the park nearly every day, where I've gotten to know the other moms and nannies. But let me tell you, these women can be nasty. Some of the conversations I've overheard are worse than the locker room talk at the gym. They didn't seem to care that I was a man among them, I even got propositions almost daily. I don't know if they were serious or just joking, but I'm certain some of them meant it. If I didn't love Kara so much, I might have been tempted. But the truth is, the only woman who influences me is my Kara. She rarely refuses me when I show her love, and we've stayed close, even through these changes. One evening, Kara came home looking a little anxious. She wanted to talk. They've hired some new managers and transferred a few people from other offices, she said. I noticed her concern right away. You look worried, dear. What's bothering you? I asked. She hesitated but then smiled slightly. The good news is they hired Dan, Emma's husband, for an office position. I'm not sure yet what his responsibilities are or who he reports to, but it's good news. That's great, Kara. Dan's a good guy, and I'm glad he was able to find something decent. Her smile faded slightly. I know you don't like Rob. I interrupted her. Kara, you told me Rob was transferred to West Virginia when you went full-time. He's not back, is he? She sighed. Yes, he's being transferred back. He'll be here next month. I just felt like I had to tell you. That's not all, is it? I asked, reading the unease on her face. No, it's not, she admitted. He's coming back as my boss. I asked to be transferred to another department, but they refused. Apparently, I'm too valuable to move. I frowned. How does that make sense? Why didn't they just promote you? I asked the same thing, but it seems Rob already knew about William's departure and asked for the position. He's already at that pay grade, and since he has seniority over me, he got the promotion. Do you want me to go and talk to Rob before he tries anything? I asked Kara. Does this make sense to you? Maybe he won't do anything, but he's so pushy. I don't know what to think. Kara hesitated for a moment. John, I'll keep working on how to deal with him. I didn't want to bother you about Rob, but I also didn't want you to hear about it from someone else. You did the right thing by telling me, darling, I replied. Thank you for being such a good wife. For the rest of the month, everything seemed fine. But the next month, when Rob returned, things changed. Kara started coming home later and often seemed upset. She hardly played with the boys, and sometimes she skipped dinner entirely. I knew something wasn't right. I had to figure out what was going on. One evening, when she came home visibly upset, I decided we needed to talk. What's the matter, Kara? Did Rob try to proposition you? I asked. Not exactly, John, she said, sighing. He's just inappropriate. He fools around, tries to touch my arm or hand when we're alone. He says things like how he used to think about me back in the day. Is there anyone at work you can report him to? Someone you can talk to? I asked, concerned. Kara hesitated. John, there's something I need to tell you. I dated Rob once before I married you. Now he's bringing it up, but I can't prove anything. I even put a tape recorder in my drawer, hoping to catch him saying something, but he's too careful. He never says anything incriminating when we're in my office. I was growing frustrated. Honey, if he ever tries anything with you, will you tell me? Or will you keep it to yourself? Honestly, I don't know, John, Kara admitted. It depends on what he does. If he tried to kiss me and I told him no and he backed off, I probably wouldn't tell you. Because knowing you, you'd march right down there, hurt him, and I'd lose you. I love you, John. I would never do anything to hurt you. I took her hand. All I ask, Kara, is that if you ever have any problems with Rob or any other guy, you come to me. Don't keep it a secret. She nodded, and after our conversation, things seemed to improve. Kara still had to work late a couple of nights a week, but she seemed happier when she came home. I kept cooking simple dinners for the kids, and once a week we went out to eat as a family. Being a stay-at-home dad wasn't something I ever imagined for myself, but it didn't bother me or Kara, at least not until others brought it up. Some people made jokes about it, and while I brushed most of them off, I couldn't deny it hurt my pride at times. I was still a man, still the head of my family, but it was hard to explain that to others. I had a temper and a jealous streak, so my friends knew not to push me too far. Unfortunately, some of Kara's friends' husbands didn't know when to draw the line. A couple of times, I had to take them outside to sort things out. I never told Kara about those incidents, though she did wonder why some of her friends stopped hanging out with us. I'll never forget one particular incident. We were out walking with an old friend of Kara's, a snobbish couple I had met only once before at our wedding. The wife, Mary, seemed fine, but her husband, Robert, as he insisted on being called, was an arrogant jerk. Over dinner, he made several remarks about how the man should always be the head of the family. After tolerating his comments for far too long, I smiled at him and said, "Robert, why don't you show me your new Porsche? I hear it's quite the car." Of course, he jumped at the chance to show off. I turned to the women and said, "We'll be back in a minute." When we got to the parking lot, I walked up to his car, grabbed him by the collar, and pressed his face against it. Then, I twisted his arm behind his back and hit him twice in the kidneys. "You arrogant worm," I growled. "I've had enough of your speeches. When we go back inside, if you make one more comment about me being a stay-at-home dad, I'll throw your head through your precious car's window. Do we understand each other?" Yes, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry. Please don't hurt me," he whimpered. "Let's go back inside," I said coldly. "And you'd better act normal." When we returned to the house, I told Kara, "That's a beautiful car, and you deserve one just like it." She laughed and replied, "You're so sweet. Maybe someday I'll get one, but for now, I'm happy with my car." She drove a decent car, a Mercury, but it was a few years old. I had recently traded my truck for a van because of the kids. We needed more space than my old truck could offer. During our entire conversation at the table, Robert kept quiet. Kara noticed, of course, and asked me later, "Why was Robert so quiet after you two went outside?" "Oh, I think he was just showing off his car and didn't have anything else to say," I replied with a smirk. Robert barely said a word after that night, though I noticed Mary glancing at him a few times, probably wondering why he was so quiet. Then one day, Kara came home from work and mentioned that she wanted to see a play. She had asked Mary if she and Robert would like to come with us, but Mary said no. After some prodding, Mary admitted that Robert didn't like me and didn't want to spend time with us anymore. Kara seemed upset when she told me this and added, "I think Mary knows about the time you hit Robert in the parking lot. I can't imagine how he told that story, considering he didn't even try to resist." She was clearly mad at me. "Maybe I should just go to the play with Mary and Robert and leave the caveman at home," she said sarcastically, meaning me. "Go to hell with them if that's what you want." I snapped. I didn't want to see that damn play anyway. "Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't you ask your boss, Rob, to go with you? I'm sure Robert would approve, seeing as they both want to get into your pants." Kara's face turned red with anger. She knew I had a habit of observing people, and over dinner at our wedding, I'd noticed Robert looking at her a lot. I started wondering if she had dated him before we met. We'd never discussed our past relationships, which was probably for the best. My past wasn't exactly stellar. I had seduced countless women, often preying on those going through tough times. Kara was furious now. "Maybe I will just go with them," she said before walking into the other room to be with the kids. Neither of us apologized. She made it clear that she was still going to the play on Saturday. I wanted to ask her who had really started this fight, her or me, but I decided to keep my mouth shut. The tension in the house was unbearable. 2 days passed, and we barely spoke to each other. On Saturday evening, I called out to the boys, "Come on, guys. Let's go to McDonald's for dinner." I didn't even say goodbye to Kara as we left. Dad, what about Mom? Isn't she coming with us? Jimmy asked. No, I replied curtly. She has a date with her friends. Maybe you'll see her tomorrow after you wake up. I'm sure she'll be back late tonight. As I spoke, Kara glanced at me sharply. She didn't say a word, but I knew I'd hit a nerve. Finally, she muttered, You're pathetic. You have no reason to talk to me like that. It was you who didn't want to go to the performance with me, I shot back. And as for coming home late, maybe you just won't come home at all. Kara called the boys over. Jimmy, Jerry, Mommy's going to a play with her friends tonight. It's not a game for kids, so Daddy's watching you. I'll see you tomorrow, and we can go to the park. Okay? Can Daddy come to the park with us too, Mommy? Jimmy asked. That's up to Dad, she replied. See you in the morning, boys. Just remember that Mommy loves you. Now run along and have fun at McDonald's with Daddy. She kissed both of them and went back to getting ready. I felt awful. We didn't argue very often, but when we did, it was always like this. Ugly, heated, and unresolved. My damn temper and jealousy always made things worse. But Kara didn't back down, not even an inch. I hoped this was just a fight and that she would handle it like she always did. The boys, on the other hand, had a blast at McDonald's. I bought them each a Happy Meal, and they were more excited about the toys inside than the food. Afterward, they played in the game room while I sat and watched. Several women were there with their children, and a few of them were definitely watching me. They probably assumed I was a divorced dad out with his kids. Honestly, the thought terrified me. I loved Kara too much to ever want that, but I couldn't help my mind from spiraling into darker thoughts. If she ever cheats on me, I thought, I'd kill the guy and then divorce her. God, what was I thinking? I hated my own thoughts. After the kids played for about an hour, I decided to take them to the airport. We sat and watched planes take off and land. The boys loved it. Look, Dad, here comes the big one. See? See? Do you see it, Dad? Jerry kept shouting, pointing to every plane. They asked me the same thing every time a plane came in, and there were a lot of planes. They were so happy, so excited. It was the distraction I needed. When we finally got home, it was dark. I gave them baths and tucked them into bed. They looked like little angels as they slept. They were such good boys, so much better than I ever was as a child. God, how I loved them. I loved being with them. But at that moment, I realized how much I missed Kara. Since Rob had come back to town, it felt like meeting after meeting was pulling her away from our family. I hated it. I hated all of it. After putting the boys to bed, I lay on the couch and turned on the TV. It was some kid's cartoon channel, but I didn't care. I just needed some noise to fill the silence. Around midnight, I heard a car pull into the garage. Kara came into the house, and I pretended to be asleep so she wouldn't bother me. I just couldn't deal with her right now. I watched as she checked on the boys, then went into the bedroom. She took off her dress and left it on the chair, deciding, apparently, to take a shower in the morning. When I got up the next morning, I saw the play program sitting on the table. It looked like she had actually gone to the play. But with whom? I wasn't going to ask her. If she wanted to talk about it, she would. For now, I let it go. The boys woke up and wanted pancakes for breakfast. While I was making them, they ran and jumped into bed with Kara. I could hear them telling her all about the toys they got with their Happy Meals and how much fun they had playing at McDonald's. Then I overheard her ask, "What was Daddy doing while you were playing?" "He just looked at us, Mommy," Jimmy replied. "Was he sitting with anyone?" she asked. "No, Mommy. He sat in the nursery and watched us play." Hearing this made my blood boil. What the hell was that supposed to mean? Did she not trust me? Damn her. Maybe I had given her a reason to doubt me in the past, but this was too much. If she didn't trust me, Then she could take the boys to the playground herself. The boys came to the kitchen to eat their pancakes, and Kara soon followed. She tried to make polite conversation, but I wasn't in the mood and didn't return her niceties. She ate a couple of pancakes, then sat down to talk to the boys. Before she could ask me if I was going to the park with them, I preempted her. "I've got plans for today," I said flatly. "You'll have to spend time with the kids without me." "Where are you going?" she asked, frowning. "I have plans," I said curtly. "I'm meeting some friends. I need to go alone." I could tell she was furious, but I didn't care. After all, she had done the same thing to me the night before. I wasn't her doormat. I went to our bedroom, put on a nice shirt and trousers, then came back out. I told the boys to enjoy the park with their mother and left the house. The truth was, I had nowhere to go. I just wanted to get even with her. How stupid could I be? Our marriage was a ticking time bomb, and neither of us had the sense to stop this madness. I ended up sitting at the airport for about an hour, stewing over everything. Once I figured they'd already left for the park, I decided to head home. I hadn't been home for more than 5 minutes when the phone rang. It was Mary. "Hi, John. I wanted to apologize for not going to the play with Kara," she said. "You didn't go to the play, Mary?" I asked, my heart sinking. "No, I didn't. That's why I wanted to apologize. I was being unreasonable. Please ask Kara to call me when she gets home. Okay?" "Of course, Mary. I'll let her know," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. After I hung up, I was beside myself. If Mary and Robert hadn't gone to the play, then who had Kara gone with? It had to be Rob. Damn it! I was so angry I couldn't even think straight. My thoughts were racing, and I felt like I was going to explode. That's when I decided to do something I hadn't done in years. I went to a bar. I ended up at a local pub owned by my old friend, Julie. She was 15 years older than me, but she'd always been someone I could talk to. "Hey, John." Julie greeted me with a big smile. "It's been months since I've seen you without the little lady strapped to your arm. What can I get you?" "Julie, give me 3 double whiskeys and 3 beers to start," I said. She gave me a concerned look. "Are you planning a one-on-one with yourself? Or do you need someone to talk to?" "Not now, Julie. Maybe later. Right now, I just want to get drunk." She sighed. "All right, but if you need anything, let me know. You've always got credit here." The bar was mostly empty, except for a few early drunks sitting at the counter. I downed my drinks quickly, feeling the alcohol take the edge off my anger. I was deep into my 3rd whiskey when I noticed Kara walking through the door. Julie must have called her. Before I knew it, Kara and 2 other women were helping me into the car. My boys were in the back seat, laughing at me. I heard Kara thank Julie for calling her and promise to come back for the car in the morning. I must have passed out because the next thing I remembered was waking up in the car. Julie must have let me sleep there, with the garage door down to keep me safe. When I checked my watch, it was 3:30 in the morning. I staggered into the house, headed straight to the bathroom, and nearly threw up. Luckily, I didn't. Afterward, I collapsed on the couch and fell asleep again. The next thing I knew, Kara was waking me up. "John, we need to talk," she said firmly. "Things are getting out of control. I have an appointment all day today and tomorrow, but as soon as I'm free, we have to talk." She paused, then added, "I spoke to our neighbor. He'll take you to pick up the van at 10 o'clock. I'm late, so I have to leave now." She gave me a light kiss on the cheek, told me she loved me, and walked out the door. I got up, made some coffee, and waited for the boys to wake up. My head was pounding, and I could barely piece together what had happened the day before. But I remembered Mary's call. She and Robert hadn't gone to the play, so who the hell did Kara go with? The boys eventually got up, and I poured them cereal before helping them get dressed. When my neighbor arrived, we all got into his van, and he drove us to pick up mine. "I'm sorry if I caused you any inconvenience," I told him. "No problem, John. I stopped drinking years ago, so I know how it feels," he replied. I thanked him again, buckled the boys into their seats, and started driving. Without even realizing it, I found myself heading toward Kara's office. The boys had never seen the inside of her office, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to take them in with me. When we arrived, I walked up to her secretary and asked to see Kara. The secretary looked surprised and said, "I'm sorry, John, but Kara isn't in the office today. Today I asked to see Rob at Kara's office, but I was told he was also out." "Where the hell are they?" I demanded. "I'm her husband." The secretary replied apologetically, "I'm very sorry, Mr. Poole. They're at a company meeting at the Holiday Inn." I was about to leave when Dan approached me in the hallway. "John, how's your day?" he asked cheerfully. "Not the best, Dan," I replied. "I came to see my wife, only to find out she's not here. She's at the Holiday Inn with that damn idiot Rob." Dan looked stunned at my statement. "Come to my office," he said, motioning for me to follow him. I asked the boys to wait in the hall while I spoke with him. "What does all of this mean, John? Is Rob making inappropriate advances toward Kara?" Dan asked once we were seated. "It's hard to say for sure," I admitted. "This is the first time I've really spoken about it. I'm not sure what's going on, but I came here today to figure it out." Dan nodded. "Well, John, I can tell you that they are at a meeting at the Holiday Inn. I know that for certain. They'll be there again tomorrow. Just don't do anything you'll regret before you talk to me first. Let's figure this out calmly." "Thank you, Dan. I really appreciate you. You've always been a good friend," I said sincerely. Dan smiled as we walked out of his office. He took a moment to chat with the boys, making them laugh. Dan really was a decent guy, and he and Emma were a great couple. I was glad he had landed a job at this company. After leaving, I decided to drive by the Holiday Inn. Sure enough, I saw Kara's car parked right next to Rob's in the lot. The sight sent my thoughts spiraling in all the wrong directions. Furious and unsure of what to do, I headed home with the boys. When we got home, the answering machine was blinking. I pressed play and heard Kara's voice. "John, I'm sorry, dear, but this meeting is going to last longer than planned. Go ahead and start dinner without me. I'll talk to you when I get home. Kiss the boys for me. Love you." I stood there, fuming. She hadn't even told me the meeting was at a hotel. What was I supposed to think? I decided I wasn't going to be there when she got home. I packed up the boys and headed to my mom's house, leaving Kara a note that simply said, "Maybe we'll see you tomorrow." I signed it with just my name, no love this time. At my mom's house, I felt utterly lost. I didn't know what I was feeling anymore. Everything seemed wrong. Tomorrow, I decided I would go to the Holiday Inn myself and put an end to all this nonsense. Around 9 p.m., my mom's phone rang. I knew it was Kara. She must have just gotten home and realized we weren't there. I asked my mom to answer and tell her that the boys were already in bed and that I wasn't in the mood to talk. I could hear my mom trying to calm her down, but Kara was clearly upset. "It's useless, you're too stubborn," my mom said after hanging up the phone. "John, something is wrong here. You and Kara need to talk and work this out." She was crying. "For heaven's sake, I don't care what you think. Kara loves you, and you need to get your head on straight." I didn't argue with her. My mom had a way of cutting through the nonsense, and if I was being honest with myself, I probably got my own stubbornness from her. I lay down on the sofa trying to sleep. I was almost used to sleeping on couches at this point. The next morning, I got up, determined to figure out the truth. There was so much circumstantial evidence, but it all seemed to add up. Today, I had to face Kara and find out everything for myself. I asked my mom to watch the boys while I went to talk to Kara. She was glad to see that I was at least giving her a chance to explain. I drove to the Holiday Inn, scanning the parking lot as soon as I arrived. There they were, Kara's car and Rob's car, parked side by side in the side lot. I walked through the side entrance and found a sign indicating where the meeting was being held. The doors to the room were open so I could hear what was going on inside. About 10 people sat around an oval table. Kara was seated right next to Rob, the idiot. I stood outside the room, listening, as one of the other attendees announced a break for lunch. They planned to reconvene afterward to finish their work for the day. I quickly went back to my van and waited. A few minutes later, I saw Kara and Rob leave the building through the side door. I rolled down my window to listen. "What do you want, Rob?" Kara asked, sounding exasperated. "I don't want to be here with you. Some people might misunderstand this, and I already have enough problems at home." "Little home daddy misses you, huh? Does he think you have a lover?" Rob asked mockingly. "Stop it, Rob," Kara snapped. "What you and I had, or rather never had, was 6 years ago before I even met John. When will you finally understand that I want nothing to do with you? Why are you making my life so difficult? Don't you understand? I don't want you. I want my husband, John." Rob smirked. "Come on, Kara. What does he have that I don't? Besides, he's just a stay-at-home dad, and you're the breadwinner. When are you going to want a real man like me and leave his sweet little—" "Enough," Kara interrupted, her voice trembling with anger. "I've told you this before, and I'll tell you again. I love my husband. Stop making these disgusting comments and leave me alone." I sat frozen in the van, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. My heart was racing, but not with jealousy this time. It was something else. Hearing Kara defend me so fiercely made me feel both relieved and ashamed. I had let my jealousy blind me, and I had doubted her without giving her a chance to explain. But Rob, he had crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let this go. Rob raised his hand to grab Kara's chest again as she stepped back to slap him. When she tried, he grabbed her hand and mocked, "Come on, Kara. Is this all you've got? Is this how you fight?" That was it. I'd had enough. I jumped out of the van and, within 3 seconds, was on him. His jaw dropped in shock, and Kara gasped, "John, what are you doing here?" "I'm doing what I should have done months ago," I said through gritted teeth. I punched Rob as hard as I could in the stomach, then landed a solid right hook to the side of his face. He tried to block me, but I just kept swinging. Somewhere along the way, I probably broke his nose. When I wasn't aiming for his face, I went for his body. He didn't even get a chance to throw a punch back. He was too busy trying to protect himself with his hands. Behind me, I could hear Kara crying and screaming, "Stop, John. Please stop." But I couldn't stop. Not yet. Rob crumpled to the ground, and just as he hit the sidewalk, I saw flashing lights. 2 police patrol cars pulled up. The officers jumped out, shouting at me to get on the ground. I didn't move fast enough for their liking. "Get on the ground. Now," they yelled. I finally dropped to the ground, lying flat with my arms at my sides. "Spread your legs," one officer barked. He placed his knee in the middle of my back, then handcuffed my wrists tightly behind me. I winced. "Officer, my hands hurt. I can barely feel them," I told him as they lifted me to my feet. Ignoring my comment, they walked me to the squad car. An ambulance pulled up, and the paramedics ran over to Rob, who was barely conscious on the ground. As they began treating him, one paramedic came over to examine my hands. "They're swollen and covered in blood," he observed. "I can't tell if it's his blood or someone else's." The paramedic, a man named Jim, introduced himself. "Hey dude, I'm Jim. What's your name?" John, I replied. My hands hurt like hell. Are they broken? Jim chuckled. If you think your hands look bad, you should see what you did to that guy over there. Dude, you really beat him up. You're lucky you didn't break all your fingers. He paused, giving me a curious look. So what the hell happened? You don't seem like a bad guy. What did that idiot do to deserve such a beating? He was harassing my wife, I said bluntly. When he grabbed her, I lost it. I can't let anyone mess with my wife, even if he is her boss. Jim nodded sympathetically. Well, John, you're clearly in a bad spot. He told the officers he wants to press charges for assault with intent to commit murder. Murder? I exclaimed. I wasn't trying to kill him. Maybe I went a little overboard. Jim examined my hands again. You didn't break anything, but you busted some blood vessels. Your hands are swollen, but they'll heal. You probably hit a hard part of his skull or maybe a belt buckle. I'll put a bandage on them, but when they take you to the holding cell, I'll make sure they let you ice them to help with the swelling. Thanks, Jim, I said. You seem like a decent guy. I appreciate it. Jim gave me a small smile. Good luck to you, John. And hey, if what you said is true, that guy deserved it. The officers loaded me into the squad car and drove me to a holding cell. As I sat there, I looked back and saw Rob being loaded into the ambulance. Kara sat in the back of a patrol car, giving her statement. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could tell she was upset. Sitting in that cell, fear began to creep in. My mind raced. What was going to happen to me? What was Kara telling the officers? Would she defend me? Or would she be angry about what I'd done? The next day, Kara sat down with the company's board of directors to explain everything. She needed them to know why her husband had assaulted her boss and what had led to the incident. Let me go back to the beginning, she started. Before I met John, I met Rob at a New Year's party. We dated on and off for a few months, long before John was in the picture. She paused, thinking back to those days. Even before Rob, I was a popular girl. My family had money, not the most luxurious, but we were well off. I went to the best schools, wore the latest styles, and hung out with other kids from wealthy families. Not all of them were bad people, most were normal enough. We just lived privileged lives and got what we wanted. I lost my virginity at a college party, Kara admitted. But I wasn't reckless or promiscuous. I could count the number of men I'd been with on one hand. She took a deep breath and continued. When I started working at Book Bindings Incorporated, I was well liked. I worked in marketing and got along with most of my coworkers. That's where I met Rob. He'd already been working there for about a year before I started. At first, he seemed like the type of guy I was used to. Arrogant, wealthy, and full of himself. She frowned, remembering the mistakes of her past. After Christmas that year, I made the mistake of sleeping with him one night. It was nothing special. In fact, it was terrible. But he thought he was God's gift to women. Afterward, he acted like I was just another notch on his belt. She hesitated, her voice filled with regret. The only reason I agreed to go to the New Year's party with him was because the plans had been made long before we'd fallen out. And since we worked together, I felt like I had no choice but to go. It's funny to call it a dream, but that's what it felt like. Only it wasn't the kind of dream you have while sleeping. It was the kind of dream you want to live forever. I met John at a party. He looked like the kind of bad boy I should have stayed away from, but I couldn't resist. That night, we left the party and went dancing among his friends. It reminded me of the movie Titanic, where Rose went with Jack to the lower decks and had the best time of her life. That's exactly how I felt with John. I didn't want it to end. When John took me home that night, I knew something would happen. I wanted to make love to him, but I was terrified. What if he didn't like me afterward? What if he turned out to be just another fleeting moment, like a dream? But John, he wasn't like that. He was fantastic. The lover of my dreams. The man I'd imagined all those years growing up. God, it was amazing. That night, I knew I'd marry him if he wanted me. My parents and brothers were against me marrying John. They didn't approve of him. But I stood my ground and told them, I love him. Whether you want to be part of our life or not, that choice is yours. They resisted and hissed about it, but in the end, they agreed to the marriage. I was determined. John and I now have 2 sons, and they are the love of our lives. After each of them was born, I took time off work to be with them. I hated even going back to part-time work because I missed them so much. They are our little joys, and they look so much like John. When John lost his job, it felt like our world was crumbling. We didn't know what to do. I told John that I could go back to work full-time while he stayed home to look after the boys. At first, he thought it was a ridiculous idea. After all, he was supposed to be the breadwinner. There weren't many quality jobs in our area, and eventually we had no choice. I went back to work, and John became a stay-at-home dad. In a way, I became jealous of him. I loved John with all my heart, but I envied the time he got to spend with our boys. That was my time, the time I should have had with them. I also worried about him when he was out with the other mothers at the park. He doesn't know this, but I know women find him handsome. I worried every single day that one of those women might take him from me. I even asked the boys subtle questions about what their dad did when they went places, hoping to calm my fears. But the fear of losing him never fully went away. Then I began working longer hours. I saw John less and less. I knew it was hurting our marriage, but what could I do? We needed to survive. I'm not one of those greedy women who only care about money. I just wanted to keep our family afloat. But trying to balance work, family, and love for my husband felt impossible. I started putting more and more of the household responsibilities on John, doing less and less for him. I could see it taking a toll on both of us. When Rob came back to town and became my boss, everything got worse. I don't like Rob. I never told John that. Before I met him, I'd had a brief fling with Rob. It was just one night, but it was a mistake I've regretted ever since. John and I never discussed our past relationships. We both agreed it was a taboo topic. But now, work had not only taken me away from the man I love, it had brought me closer to the man I despised. Rob kept pestering me, and I was afraid to tell John. I knew exactly how he'd react. In the end, he reacted anyway, just as I feared. John has a bad temper and a jealous streak. He's fiercely protective of what belongs to him, and while I love that about him, it can also drive me crazy. He makes me feel so safe, but at the same time, his temper scares me. I hated knowing that people sometimes made fun of John for being a stay-at-home dad. I wasn't sure whether to tell him or keep it to myself. On one hand, I wanted to protect him, but on the other, he was my husband, and I wanted to defend him. I told several of my friends that if they had a problem with John, then we didn't need to be friends anymore. I stood up for him when he wasn't there to speak for himself. I even told Mary and Robert to go to hell. John meant more to me than they ever did. Mary later called to apologize, admitting she'd been wrong in how she treated John. I think a lot of my friends' husbands were actually jealous of John. He was living the life they wanted. He was with his family, raising his kids and secure in his manhood, while they were always away, consumed by work and money. But then John got that call from Mary. When he found out that they hadn't gone to the play with me, he became suspicious of Rob again. It made me so angry. He was always accusing me of having affairs when I'd never done anything wrong. In the heat of our arguments, we both said stupid things. I regret telling him I might have an affair. I should have known that would set him off. He's stubborn, and so am I. We both needed to communicate more, but we were so caught up in our own emotions that we never did. I was afraid to tell John that the meeting was going to take place at a hotel. I knew it would only make him angrier, and I was already struggling to keep things together. Work was taking me away from him, and the man I hated, Rob, kept trying to push himself back into my life. I felt torn apart, unsure of what to do. I loved John with all my heart, but I didn't know how to fix the cracks that had started to form in our marriage. The Holiday Inn situation was a nightmare. I knew John would misinterpret everything, and he did. On the first day of the meetings, there were about 20 people in attendance, and the session ran late into the night. I called John to let him know, but instead of understanding, he left me. I didn't know what to do. Feeling desperate, I called his mother, who is a wonderful woman, but even she admitted that John wouldn't talk to me right now. I went to bed devastated, crying the entire night. The next day was the final meeting. I kept telling myself that maybe, after it was over, John and I could go somewhere and have time alone to fix things. I love him so much, but the tension between us was unbearable. During lunch, Rob asked me to step outside. When I tried to shut him down and slap him after he made another disgusting remark, he grabbed my hand and tried to grope me. That's when John appeared out of nowhere, like a storm, and started beating Rob. I was terrified that John might actually kill him and that I would lose my husband forever. Now John is sitting in a prison cell, and I'm getting ready to tell my side of the story to the board of directors. I feel so scared, and I don't have my John here to protect me. I sat in the holding cell, replaying everything in my mind. I wasn't charged with murder, thank God, but they hit me with assault with intent to maim. It's funny because, honestly, that's exactly what I was trying to do. They didn't tack on a murder charge only because I didn't have any weapons, not even my car keys. I'd left those in my van when I jumped out to confront Rob. The adrenaline had worn off, and the pain in my hands was unbearable. They were swollen, cut, and covered in dried blood. Jim, the paramedic from earlier, had told me they'd heal in a few days, but it didn't feel like it. I soaked them in a bucket of ice they gave me in the cell, which helped a little. My bail was set at $100,000. I could get out for $10,000, but where would I get that kind of money? I tried calling Kara, but all I got was her voicemail. I felt like I'd left her with enough problems already. Later that evening, the officer came to my cell and told me my bail had been paid. I needed to sign some paperwork and would be released. I was stunned. Who could have paid it? I only stayed one night in that cell, but it felt like a lifetime. When I got to the front desk, I was shocked to see my father-in-law standing there. This was a man I'd probably exchanged fewer than 50 words with in 5 years. "Did you lend us money to help me out?" I asked cautiously. "John, we need to talk," he said. "Kara called me and told me about your situation. I'm so sorry. You see, last Saturday, Kara opened our eyes." "Mr. Carson, what happened last Saturday?" I asked, confused. "She went to the play last Saturday with my wife and me. She told us you two had a misunderstanding. We used to think you weren't right for her, and she put us in our place. She told us how much you mean to her, how much she loves you, and how much Jimmy and Jerry adore you. She said most men are jealous of you because you're a wonderful father and husband. She called you her knight in shining armor. And yesterday you proved it. You protected my daughter, your wife." I felt my throat tighten as he continued. "I am so sorry for the way I've treated you all these years, John. I ask for your forgiveness. I know I've been a stubborn man, but I hope we can become better friends. I look at you now and hope my 2 sons can live up to your standards." "Thank you, Mr. Carson," I replied, my voice shaking. "I wish we could become closer, for Kara's sake and for ours. She loves you so much and finds it hard when she feels torn between us. Right now, I need to figure out what's next and how long I'll be in legal trouble. I might need you to help look after my family. John, we'll fight this together. I know Kara, and she doesn't lie. She may not tell the whole story every time, but she doesn't lie. Let's get you home to your boys. When we arrived home, Mr. Carson dropped me off. Kara had left me a note in case I was released on bail. It read, "Honey, I'm in the office trying to figure out if I still have a job. Please don't leave if you get home before me. I miss you so much. I left the boys with your mom. John, you have to trust me. I love you with all my heart. I hope you'll be here when I get home. Love, Kara." I knew in my heart that Kara hadn't cheated on me with Rob. But even though I trusted her, we had other problems to deal with. I went to the refrigerator to grab a beer when I heard Kara's car pulling into the garage. Quickly, I grabbed another beer and opened both, one for her. As soon as Kara walked in, I handed her the beer, a peace offering. "I love you," I said, my voice cracking. "And I know we can get through this if you stay with me. Kara, I've been a fool for not fully believing you. Please forgive me if you can." Tears welled up in my eyes, and I meant every word. Kara began to cry too, her emotions spilling over. She reached out and hugged me tightly. I was still holding both beers awkwardly. "Honey, could you take one of these before I spill it?" I joked through my tears. She laughed softly, still crying, and took one of the beers. "John, I love you so much," she said, her voice trembling. "I never cheated on you. I didn't even think about it. Please believe me." "I do, Kara," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." We stood there, holding each other, our beers forgotten on the counter. "Believe me, John, I just didn't tell you everything because, well, now you know why," Kara said softly. "From now on, I will tell you everything. Maybe we can nip things in the bud before they get too far. I wanted to tell you what was going on, but then you started blaming me. And, well, we're both a little stubborn. We need to talk more often." "I agree," I said. "No more secrets or untold stories. When your father posted bail for me, I was shocked to see him there. He apologized and told me you stood up for me, that you told them off, and that you went to the play with him and your mom. All this time, you didn't tell me any of that." "As I mentioned," she replied, "you kept accusing me of wanting Rob and accusing me of things I didn't do. I got angry and thought, to hell with it. He can believe whatever he wants. But John, I never cheated on you. I've always been on your side, you just never saw it. You always assumed the worst. What a fool I've been," I admitted. "You're right, we really do need to talk more. Are you going to tell me what happened at work today? I wasn't exactly aware of what was going on." "You won't believe it," Kara said, her voice rising slightly. "But I was called to meet with the board of directors to give my version of events and explain what led to everything. And guess what? Emma is on the board. I almost fainted when I saw her. No wonder Dan got his job so easily. If I were on the board of directors, I'd hire you too." "Emma?" I said, surprised. "I was talking to Dan the other day, and he told me not to do anything stupid until he could get back to me. I should have listened to him. But when that creep tried to touch you, I freaked out. I'm so sorry, honey. John, you never need to apologize to me for protecting me," Kara said with a smile. "That's one of the things I love about you. You're my hero. Your hero is about to go to prison if I don't figure a way out of this mess," I replied with a grim chuckle. "So, what happened at the meeting?" Emma started by saying she cared about me and thought I must have been incredibly angry for things to escalate like they did. I told her about Rob hitting on me and how I kept turning down his advances, but he just wouldn't stop. Emma said I should have come to the board to report Rob. "And what did you tell her?" I asked. "I told her I didn't have proof. It was my word against his," Kara said. Another board member said I still should have reported the incidents so there would be a record on file. After enough complaints, they would have taken disciplinary action. But I didn't do that. I went ahead and told them everything, John. How Rob grabbed my hand, how you jumped out of the van and protected me. I laid it all out. And what did they say? I asked, leaning in. They told me they talked to Rob in the hospital, and of course, his story was completely different. They said he pressed assault charges against you, and that he'd be in the hospital for another day or two because of what you did. Then they asked me if I wanted to file a report of intimate assault against him. And what did you say? I asked. I said, what's the point? I have no proof. But Emma pulled me aside and said, Kara, trust me. File the report. So, I did as she advised and filed a report of intimate harassment, Kara explained. The board told me to take the rest of the week off and come back on Monday when they'd review all the evidence and make a decision. I asked if I still had a job, and one of the members told me they'd let me know on Monday. God, honey, I really screwed up this time, I said, shaking my head. We have a few days to spend with the boys, Kara said, reaching for my hand. There's nothing we can do about it right now. We decided to make the most of the time we had, so we told the boys we'd take them to the zoo as a family. After the zoo, we went to McDonald's, then spent some time watching planes at the airport. Doing it all together as a family felt so much better. Even the fast food tasted better. When we got home, we put the boys to bed. Kara turned to me and asked, John, will you make love to me? She didn't have to ask twice. We made love for the next 2 hours until we were too exhausted to keep going. We cuddled in bed and fell asleep, holding each other tightly. The next morning, we received a call from Kara's father's lawyer. He told us not to worry. Kara's father would cover any legal fees. I didn't like the idea of accepting money from him, but Kara insisted. He's doing this to apologize to us, John, she said. And besides, we don't have the money for a good lawyer right now. She was right. Reluctantly, I agreed. That Monday morning, Kara was getting dressed to appear before the board. I got the boys ready, then put on a pair of trousers and a sports jacket. Kara looked at me and asked, Where are you going? I'm leaving the boys with Mom, and I'm going with you, I said firmly. I made this mess, and I'm going to stand by your side until the end. You can't do this alone. She started to cry and kissed me. Thank you, John, she whispered. After dropping the boys off with my mom, we walked into the office building and went upstairs to the waiting room. The secretary came out and asked Kara to come into the hall. I gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. I'm here, Kara, I said. We'll get through this together. The receptionist called me into the meeting room. I entered and sat down next to Kara, taking her hands in mine for reassurance. How are you doing, John? How are your hands? Emma asked. They're improving. I'll be fine in a couple of days, I replied. Emma smiled and leaned forward. John, Kara, we think we have good news for you. We recently spoke with Rob. Well, John, you certainly gave him a memorable time. A few of the board members chuckled lightly before another member spoke up. We also addressed the intimate harassment case Kara filed last week. As expected, Rob denied all the allegations, claiming none of it was true. So we asked him what provoked John to attack him, and, unsurprisingly, he couldn't give us a straight answer. Another board member chimed in. Rob did, however, propose a solution. He said that although the harassment allegations can't be proven, which we agree with, he would be willing to drop the assault charges against John if Kara agreed to drop the harassment charges. Additionally, no disciplinary action would be taken against him. Kara's grip on my hands tightened, and tears began streaming down her face. Emma's eyes were also brimming with tears. Kara looked at me and then at the board, her voice trembling. God, yes, thank you so much. I don't even know what to say. I cleared my throat and spoke up. I have something to say, Emma, and to all of you. First, I'd like to thank you for your fairness and understanding here, but I don't want to sound ungrateful. Does my wife still have to work under Rob? I'm afraid that would be very difficult for me to accept. One of the board members nodded. We've taken that into account. Kara, we have a proposition for you. Would you be willing to take over as head of the department? Kara blinked in surprise. I don't understand. I thought you said there would be no disciplinary action. Where would Rob go if I were promoted? He'll be transferred back to West Virginia, the board member explained. He has already complained about this after signing the agreement, but we assured him it's not disciplinary action. It's just a good business decision. He'll be on sick leave for about a month, then relocated to another position in West Virginia. We won't bring him back into this environment. The board member smiled warmly. So, Kara, should we consider this an acceptance of the promotion? Kara looked at me for guidance. Well, dear, should I take it? She asked with a smile. I grinned back. Of course. Just don't work so late. The boys and I will cook dinner for you. Kara laughed and nodded. Okay, I'll take the position. Thank you all so much. Emma stood and spoke again. I think we did a good job here. Kara, congratulations. And thank you for everything. I hope this will bring some much-needed peace for you and your family. As we left the meeting room, we found Dan waiting outside, smiling at us. Without hesitation, I walked up to him and gave him a big hug. He'd been a true friend through everything. When we got in the car, I turned to Kara. Call your mom and dad. Let's invite them to dinner, our treat. We've got some great news to share with them. Kara nodded, and for the first time in what felt like ages, we both smiled in relief. 2 years have passed since all of this happened, and life has been really good. Kara and I have learned a lot from those turbulent times. Now, whenever one of us gets too stubborn, we just use the word stubborn as a signal that we need to sit down and talk things out. It's a simple reminder that communication is key. We've also learned to laugh about certain things. For example, I still notice attractive women, but now I tell Kara about it. She'll joke, look, but don't touch, and we move on. It's one of the ways we've grown stronger together, through honesty and trust. The boys are in school now, so our days are much calmer. I told Kara that I wanted to find a job, and that same day my father-in-law called me. John, he said, Kara mentioned you're looking for work. Is that true? Yes, Dad, I replied. It's true. I want to get back to work now that the boys are in school. Well, when we went to dinner a while back, I told you to start calling me Dad. And I meant it, he said warmly. I have a vacancy at the warehouse. It only pays $30,000 a year, but it's honest work, and you'll have plenty of time to be with my grandchildren. Maybe we can even work something out so you can take a summer vacation with them. I smiled, grateful for his support. Thank you, Dad. I'll take it. After accepting the job, I called Kara at work to tell her the news. We decided to meet for lunch and invited Dan and Emma to join us. Over lunch, we asked them to be Jimmy and Jerry's godparents. They were thrilled to accept. Kara and I have learned so much from our struggles. The most important lesson is that we need to communicate. No more assumptions, no more guessing games, just open, honest conversations. Our lovemaking is still incredible, and we've built a strong circle of friends. Whether they're my friends or Kara's, everyone knows the rule. Accept us both, or don't accept us at all. What do you think of our story? It's been a journey.